He never imagined his own text messages would expose the entire sham on my wedding day. But that's exactly what happened, right in front of 100 guests. My name is Alexis, and if you'd told me 6 months ago I'd be at war with my own parents over my wedding fund, I would have laughed in disbelief. Yet here I am, with a ring on my finger, a family feud in full swing, and a plan to serve long-overdue justice. It all started at my engagement party, a warm, late summer afternoon at Highview Vineyards, just outside of Boulder. Strings of café lights shimmered over oak tables, and the sweet scent of lavender drifted in the breeze. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, a day about me and Julian, the man who could melt me with a single glance. Instead, it was the day I realized my own mother and father would do anything to protect my brother, Austin, even if it meant stealing from me. I remember standing near the bar, sipping a sparkling cider because I wanted a clear head. Julian was across the patio, laughing with my cousin Brianna. My mother, Genevieve, had just finished making her rounds, flashing that famous smile, leaning in with feigned warmth to greet each relative. My father, Clark, shadowed her as usual, offering quick nods but barely a word. When my mother tapped her spoon against a glass, the chatter died, and everyone turned her way. "Alexis, darling," she said sweetly, raising her wine. "Your father and I are so proud of you." And Julian, she nodded at him. "We're thrilled to have you join the family." The guests clapped politely, a few whistled. In that moment, I felt a flicker of genuine happiness, but then her tone shifted. "While we're all here, I'd like to address something important. Some of you know we set aside a significant fund for Alexis's wedding when she was a teenager. $50,000, she paused, letting the weight of the number register. "But Austin," she gestured toward my brother, who was standing on the other side of the patio, wearing that too innocent expression he'd perfected years ago. "Austin hasn't had it easy. He struggled with school loans, a failing startup, and some personal setbacks. It's only fair we offer him half of that wedding fund. We're all family after all." The air went still as though someone had switched off the breeze. Half of my wedding fund. The money I'd counted on for years, money I'd meticulously planned to cover the venue, the catering, my dream dress. I set my drink down with a small clang. "No," I said, my voice clear enough to slice through the hush. Some people chuckled softly, thinking maybe I was playing a game, but I wasn't. "That fund is mine," I continued. "It's not up for grabs, and I won't share it." My mother's smile became tight. She was still in the spotlight, so she tried to smooth it over, cooing something about how family helps each other in times of need. I didn't smile. I stared directly at her. "This isn't about need," I said softly. "It's about enabling someone who refuses to take responsibility for himself." Genevieve's eyes flashed a warning. My father stayed silent. And across the patio, Austin's smug half-smile told me everything I needed to know. He expected me to cave. He always got what he wanted. Always. Moments later, as chatter cautiously resumed, Julian sidled up to me. He pressed a gentle hand on my arm. "You all right?" he asked. I forced a small nod, but my insides were rattling. This was no simple disagreement. This was a line they'd crossed in front of everyone, and I refused to back down. That evening, after the party, I tried to push the confrontation from my mind. I changed out of my dress, sat on the bed, and stared at my wedding planner notebook. I had so many details left to organize. Yet all I saw was Austin's face, his triumphant little grin, and my mother orchestrating everything with that polished charm. They had no idea who they were messing with. 2 days later, the rumor mill went into overdrive. My Aunt Lydia sent me a carefully worded text. "You know Austin's been through a lot. Perhaps you can show some compassion." A cousin I hadn't seen in years messaged, "Wow, that must have been embarrassing at the party. Family first, right?" And so on. My phone nearly vibrated off the table with messages from people guilt-tripping me for hoarding money. Nobody asked how I felt. Nobody wondered if Austin really was the victim. Julian remained my rock through all of it. "They want you to roll over and give in," he said gently one morning, making me a cup of coffee before he left for work. "But I've seen you when you're determined. You won't let them break you." He was right. If they wanted to fight, I'd fight. Yet I had no idea how far they'd go. It was the day of my first dress fitting when my mother stormed into the boutique, face flushed as if she'd been running. She gasped for breath like she might faint right there among the lace and tulle, clutching her chest and moaning about terrible stress. Staff rushed to help, calling an ambulance. I stood against the wall and watched. I knew her theatrics too well. Paramedics checked her vitals. Nothing was wrong. Not a single sign of actual distress, aside from her carefully timed dramatics. She refused to go to the hospital, insisted she just needed rest. Then, after the store emptied, she gave me the coldest look. "Why won't you just share with your brother, Alexis?" she hissed under her breath. "You always got more than him. You know that's not fair." I stared back, my heart pounding. "What's unfair," I said, "is how you've spent a lifetime bailing him out and then expect me to finance his mistakes." She left without another word. An hour later, the boutique manager called, confused. "Your mother just phoned us to cancel your fittings and transfer your deposit. She said you're too overwhelmed to continue right now. But you didn't confirm that, right?" I nearly crushed the phone in my grip. "No," I said, voice shaking. "Don't you move a single penny." My mother had gone behind my back, meddling with my wedding. My wedding. She wanted me so worn down, so emotionally rattled, I'd eventually fold. That's when I realized this wasn't just about some wedding fund. It was about control. Then the real attacks began. They started small, anonymous whispers that Julian might be unfaithful, or that I was getting cold feet. But soon, the sabotage became more vicious. One of my coworkers forwarded me a bizarre email, supposedly from me, claiming to be too heartbroken to continue with wedding plans. The writing style was off, the domain was slightly misspelled, but it looked real enough to confuse half my colleagues. Then my boss pulled me aside with a grave expression. "We got a tip about a video, Alexis. An explicit one. It's obviously fake, but it was emailed around with your name attached. We're handling it, but I thought you should know." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Did you trace it?" She shrugged, apologetic. "Hard to say. Might be from a burner account." I walked out of her office with legs that felt like lead. This was no casual rumor. They were messing with my career now. And for what? A chunk of cash that my parents had promised me years ago? No. I knew exactly who was orchestrating this. I recognized my mother's manipulative style. I recognized Austin's digital fingerprints too. He'd pulled stunts like this on ex-girlfriends who dared to leave him. I sat down that night and combed through every suspicious email, every text, every rumor. I saved screenshots. I opened a new folder on my laptop called Proof. If they wanted to drag me through the mud, I'd be ready. What they didn't realize was that I'd grown tired of playing defense. Revenge to me meant shining a giant spotlight on every single dirty trick. I started calling old contacts, an ex-roommate of Austin's, a former business partner he'd ghosted, a woman he threatened with false claims online when she ended their relationship. One by one, they told me their stories, forwarded me evidence. I tucked it all away. A week later, an envelope arrived at Julian's office, no return address, filled with printed stills of the fake explicit video. On top was a note in black marker, "Are you sure she's worth it?" That was it. That was the final straw. I called an attorney, someone recommended by a friend who'd dealt with a similar family mess. We filed a cease and desist against both my parents and Austin. We attached screenshots, testimonies, IP logs. The attorney was appalled by how much they'd done already. "This is serious harassment," she said. "We can press charges if they continue." That same evening, I emailed my mother and father directly. No pleasantries, no guilt. "I know what you're doing. I have all the evidence. If you don't stop, you'll answer in court. Send." They never replied. But they went silent. My phone no longer lit up with manipulative texts from relatives. No new sabotage attempts at work. It felt like a calm before a storm, and I braced myself for their next move. As the wedding day drew closer, I told my planner we were tightening security. "Remove my parents and brother from the guest list," I instructed. "Notify staff. If they appear, I want them escorted off the property." The planner blinked. "You're sure? This is your family." "They forfeited that title the moment they came after me," I said quietly. "No second chances." Julian supported me every step of the way. He never pressed me to reconcile, never told me I was being too harsh. He believed me. He believed in me. That was worth more than any vow I'd ever dreamed of. When the wedding day finally arrived, it felt surreal. The sun rose over the foothills in Fort Collins, illuminating the botanical garden we'd rented. Rows of white chairs faced a simple arch of wildflowers. Friends and family who truly loved us trickled in, hugging us, wishing us well. I wore a flowing chiffon gown, hair curled just so, but my heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and dread. Had they really given up? Or were they plotting a last-minute strike? Sure enough, as I was about to walk down the aisle, my cousin Brianna, one of the few on my side, sneaked up behind me, breathless. "Your mother and Austin are here," she whispered. "I just saw them trying to talk their way in. Security is blocking them." My pulse spiked. This was my wedding, my moment, and they were about to ruin it. "I'll handle it," I said, steeling myself. "But wait for my cue." Brianna nodded, stepping aside. She knew I had a plan. She just didn't know what it was. As the music swelled, I began my walk down the aisle, escorted by my Uncle James. Julian stood near the arch, looking handsome in a fitted suit. Our guests rose to their feet, and the air shimmered with anticipation. But I caught a glimpse of movement behind the far fence. My mother's pastel dress, Austin's jacket. They were sneaking around, trying to slip in through a side gate. My chest tightened, but I didn't let it show on my face. Instead, I focused on my soon-to-be husband. He gave me a small nod, like he trusted me to do what needed to be done. Just as I reached him, my mother appeared at the edge of the seating area. Security was behind her, telling her to stop. She wove past a few rows, oblivious to the gasps of guests. Austin trailed right behind, face twisted in a scowl. It all happened fast. Genevieve lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "This is enough," she hissed. "You're not doing this without us. You are our daughter." I shook off her grip, voice raised so everyone could hear. "If you cared about being my parents, you wouldn't have tried to destroy me these past few months." Then she did something I'll never forget. She slapped me. Hard and swift, across my left cheek. A sharp sting rang through my entire face. People gasped. The harpist actually stopped playing mid-note. My veil fluttered to the ground. I heard someone shout, "What are you doing?" Genevieve froze, as if realizing too late that she'd just struck her own daughter in front of every witness I had. I lifted my head, ignoring the throbbing in my cheek. "Security," I said calmly. "Escort them out." My mother's eyes darted around, searching for help, but no one stepped forward. Even my father, lurking near the garden entrance, didn't intervene. Austin tried to protest, spewing something about how I'd always been the problem, but the guards were already pulling him away. Right then, Brianna signaled to the AV guy. Without a word, he switched the feed on the side screens to a loop of images. Screenshots of the fake emails, the text from Austin bragging about how he'd ruin me, receipts showing he'd spent thousands on weekend getaways while claiming he was broke. It was all there. A single damning slideshow for everyone to see. My mother let out a strangled cry. Austin's face went pale. Security hustled them off the premises while guests looked on, stunned. A hush fell. The final image on the screen was a text from Austin to my mother. "Once she gives me the money, we can ghost her. She'll come crawling back eventually." The slideshow ended. Silence. Then someone began to clap. Another person joined. Soon, the entire crowd erupted, not in confusion, but in support. Because they finally saw. They saw what I'd been enduring, the cruelty, the deception, the sabotage. Julian reached for my hands. "Do you want to stop?" he whispered, concern tightening his eyes. I steadied my breath. "No," I said, rubbing the sore spot on my cheek. "I want to get married." And we did. Standing under that arch, we exchanged vows that felt both sacred and defiant. When he kissed me, the cheers were thunderous. It wasn't just celebration, it was relief. A release of all that tension, all the lies my parents had spun. I'd stood up for myself in public, under the very sun they tried to block. 3 days later, my father emailed me a half-baked apology. Something about "sorry you felt attacked, and we only wanted what's best for the family." I didn't bother replying. My attorney did. And that was the end of it. They'd already taken out a loan for Austin's upcoming wedding at some lavish hotel in Nevada. Word traveled fast. Vendors started refusing them. Family members withdrew RSVPs. Turns out no one likes being lied to or manipulated. Still, it didn't bring me joy to hear them struggling. If anything, I felt an odd sort of sadness. They chose him, his lies, his greed, over a real relationship with me. But I couldn't fix that. Nor did I want to anymore. I also realized something. I no longer wanted the entire $50,000. Not all of it. Not after what it had become, a symbol of everything they'd tried to take from me. So Julian and I agreed on a simpler wedding budget, paying for most of it ourselves. The remainder of that old wedding fund had about $7,000 left. I donated it to a local nonprofit that provides legal aid to women escaping toxic family situations. A part of me felt lighter, letting that money do good in the world, rather than hold me hostage. In the weeks that followed, my name changed, not just on paper, but in spirit. I was no longer Alexis White, daughter of Genevieve and Clark White, overshadowed by her golden boy brother Austin. I became Alexis Shaw, forging a new branch of my own family. Julian and I returned from a short honeymoon and started building our life with a sense of peace I'd never known. Yes, I'd lost some relatives in the process, people who'd rather believe my parents' sob stories than the evidence, but I'd kept myself, and that was worth everything. Now, if you're listening to this wondering, how could anyone's own mother sabotage her like that? Or, shouldn't family be the safest place in the world? I get you. I ask the same questions, over and over, but sometimes, family isn't about blood. It's about who has your back. It's who refuses to rewrite your story just to protect a broken status quo. Walking away from those who share your DNA can be excruciating. The guilt, the fear of abandonment, the impossible hope they'll change. But take it from me, letting someone else's toxic choices define your life is far worse. Standing up, throwing light on the lies, might hurt in the moment, but it's the kind of hurt that leads to healing. If you're at a crossroads, dealing with people who'd rather break you than face their own failings, ask yourself, do they truly want what's best for you, or do they just want control? And if it's the latter, maybe it's time to write a new chapter without them. That slap at my wedding, it was the last time Genevieve ever laid a hand on me or tried to control my future. In the moment, it stung like 1,000 needles, but it also broke a spell I'd been under my whole life. The next day, I looked in the mirror and didn't see a victim. I saw a survivor who refused to submit to another person's narrative. So that's my story, one of betrayal, sabotage, and yes, a little taste of revenge. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destroying the other person. It's about exposing the truth and letting it speak for itself. When you let the truth shine, it does all the work for you. Now tell me, have you ever cut ties with someone you were told you should love unconditionally? Did you wrestle with the guilt? Or maybe you're still in that place right now, trying to decide if your peace is worth the fallout. Trust me, it is. Drop a comment below. Let me know where you're listening from. Or just type, I choose me, if this story resonated with you. I read every single message, and before you go, don't forget to hit subscribe. There are countless stories out there. Stories of heartbreak, triumph, revenge, and everything in between. If mine struck a chord in you, I hope you'll stick around. This is where we remind each other that even the deepest cuts can heal. And sometimes, leaving the pain behind is the sweetest justice of all.